Well, let me start with the very genesis of BRICS and the new world order that you mentioned. Very quickly, BRICS was established in 2009. BRICS is a coalition of or an alliance of five major countries. First of all, it was started by Brazil, India, Russia, China. Then South Africa was added a year later after BRICS. And I would like to explain why South Africa is a member of BRICS.
Yes, why?
I'll have to do that.
Yeah, that's the only African country for now, as at now. But you gave me breaking news a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, the news that broke was that Tunisia is very serious with their membership joining BRICS, and other countries are in the pipeline, pushing their membership into BRICS. Nigeria inclusive. Saudi Arabia is there. Egypt is there. They have some other notable countries that are looking forward to BRICS.
But before you actually explain, I thought Tunisia wanted to join ECOWAS. There was a time they wanted to join ECOWAS and it was a no.
Tunisia is a Northern African country.
Yes,
ECOWAS is a
yes.
Yeah, West
I know
Africa,
they wanted to join.
It's all about their national interests, especially their economic interests. ECOWAS represents a very formidable trading bloc in the African continent, being a sub-region of the continent. So ECOWAS makes a lot of sense. Morocco wanted to join. Israel wants not just AU, but Israel wants not the idea of joining, the sub-region and all of that because of their national interest to be very much advanced joining ECOWAS because of the large trading bloc and members in ECOWAS. Nigeria is very vast and all of that. But going back to BRICS, there's a lot of geopolitical dimensions to BRICS. We know that before now, the world after the Cold War, the world became a unipolar, meaning US was the dominant global power then. But now BRICS is coming to challenge that. BRICS is bringing an alternative. The major reason why BRICS is bringing this attention is because the IMF and the World Bank, known as the Bretton Woods brothers, because the formation of both came from the Western world. Now we need an alternative economy, an alternative means of trading, means of financial transaction. For now, BRICS is just an economic bloc. It's looking like an economic bloc because you have Russia, you have China, you have India, you have Brazil, very dominant. Then South Africa, China and India represents a vast, massive population. China is over 1.4 million. India is over 1.3 million. Now the GDP of the BRICS country are more than the G7. That's the latest coming from a research institute from UK. The GDP of BRICS is more than the G7. Don't forget, G7 represents USA, Japan, Canada, UK, France, then the European Union. Yeah, if I've not, if I didn't mention anyone. So this G7 against BRICS, the comparative comparison is coming up now. What's happening? The world is either you're aligning to the West or you're aligning with the BRICS. Then, there's so much to unpack with the BRICS. Of course, you've heard of the petrodollar coming up, the dollar losing its relevance in global financial transaction because the BRICS have created a new developmental bank that offers a better loan and a better financial aid to developing economies, which is much more fancy to this developing economy, unlike IMF and World Bank that usually rip them off with, especially with IMF, the structural adjustment program that many people believe that Nigeria is still suffering from now. So BRICS brings this whole lot of alternative to developing economy. For the issue of Tunisia's President Kessi, of course, he looked at BRICS. BRICS offers better, unlike the Western world. If you equally look very well, France is losing its colonial powers in Africa.
Exactly.
Mali and Burkina Faso are typical textbook example that the African countries are trying to cut the colonial ties away from France. France and the entire Europe needs to regain its stronghold back in Africa. But the BRICS countries are making serious inroads in Africa. If you look at China sponsor a lot of infrastructural works and projects in Africa. Then Russia is also making inroads in terms of its military partnership with African countries, especially down here in the Sahel. Look at Mali, yet again Burkina Faso. These countries are showing allegiance to Russia and cutting off colonial ties with their former
That's
colonial
why we could
masters.
actually see the vice president coming from of US. Yes, she came to Ghana.
Exactly, she came to
She's
Ghana,
and the
Zambia, and Tanzania.
Just touring the whole African countries.
The Macron made a friendship tour in Africa. They are trying to regain, these are signs, and of course, those visits were preemptive measures because of Putin's coming to Africa to, build confidence with these African countries. But then, it's much more, like you said, the new world order. This is an emerging new world order, or let me just put it this way, an established new world order where we will no longer have a US superpower, but a dimensional or multipolar system where you have pockets of superpowers as well. But in all of this, Africa is equally at the center of it. What can BRICS offer to Africa? What have the Western powers been offering Africa all this time? We know what the Western powers have been offering Africa: loans, education, and all this comes with strong political order tones. But the BRICS are coming with energy, infrastructure. Russia represents a whole lot of that. Free grain, infrastructural partnership, developments, and loans coming from China. India is equally there in many aspects. You have the Indian companies here. In fact, China have over 2,200 Chinese private firms working in Africa. So you have a lot of Chinese in Africa, you have a lot of Indians in Africa, a lot of Russians are making strong inroads in Africa. So the BRICS are coming much more transparent, but for now, like I said, it looks like much more like an economic bloc, especially with the new developmental bank that the BRICS have established. Brazil is also there. Don't forget that Brazil is a dominant country in Latin America. So the BRICS are cut across globally in a very strong footing. Now, the Western powers, especially US, UK, and France, are now trying to do the catch-up. But it's equally their fault for not having a very serious foreign policy for Africa. Then let me equally quickly hint on why South Africa is a member of BRICS, because with the Russian aggression in Ukraine, people have questioned why would South Africa not follow other countries to sanction Russia and all of that. But then, the South African foreign policy towards Russia is very clear. During the time of apartheid, Russia was one of the very few countries that supported the ANC against the apartheid regime. They supported them not just in with solidarity, partnership, but with raw military aid, financial aid, moral support. The Russians were there with the South Africans, sending embargoes to the ANC freedom fighters, even in camps. They were there, they were long partners even when the world didn't know. But now Russia needs its support back. So this is why South Africa has to be there. So whatever UN resolution that will be going down at the UN General Assembly, South Africa will always have Russia's back. So this is why, and South Africa, of course, maybe not the biggest economy in Africa. Maybe Nigeria should be. Nigeria is, but South Africa is a major player in terms of politics, in terms of geostrategic relevance and significance to the African continental politics, and also in terms of economy and natural resources. So South Africa being a member of BRICS, means so much to BRICS. If you even look at their diplomats, you try to downplay or try to mesmerize them, you are supporting Russia, they look at you. If only you understand our struggle and why we have to back Russia, then even during Nelson Mandela's era, Nelson Mandela once defended Russia in front of the Western media that it's not all speaking good English and wearing suit and nice tie to do the democratic talk and all of that. It's not really easy. The Russians were there with them. So the world is changing. It's time for payback. So if the Western world or the Western bloc have failed to be responsible, now Africans are trying to realign. I saw a tweet by one of the former presidential candidates in Nigeria, not this election but previous election. I say Nigeria should have joined BRICS and blah blah blah. Yes, Nigeria have applied, but it's not about joining. It's all about creating an African homegrown solution. If care is not taken, Tunisia is going to be another Libya. That's the fear, and European Union are very much at alert now, because a collapse of if Tunisia should collapse, means that there will be exodus migration through the Mediterranean to Europe. So it's a whole lot of you have to be concerned seriously now. So the EU are trying to mediate the Tunisian case. Tunisia refused to collect a loan from IMF. They are saying no, we won't collect loan. Instead of going to IMF, we rather go to the BRICS, the new developmental bank. Cannot forget the case of the current Tunisian president. He circumvented the presidential term limit to extend his tenure in office. So the Westerners won't want to have such a person as a partner in Tunisia. So these are a whole lot of dynamics. We've not even touched on petrodollar.
Exactly.
A whole lot of the BRICS and the new world order. So much. Probably delegate one day to
we'll have to
just dilute
we'll
this.
Definitely need to explain to the listener what all these BRICS is spelled BRICS. BRICS, not the BRICS, BRICS, BRICS. And it came across my mind that this is not what Gaddafi was actually trying to let people know back then before he was killed.
Yeah.
Because this is what he was actually building.
Divisions have been there, but Gaddafi fought against petrodollar, having the US dollar as a global currency. If you have to trade in oil, if you have to trade in gold, it have to be through the US dollar. Gaddafi tried to challenge that norms, and of course the Western powers dealt with him. They saw the future ahead of him. But then Africa one currency, trying to make Africa just be like the European Union and all of that, will very much favor the African national interests and all of that. But it's all about interest, like I keep telling people. Even don't forget, BRICS might not be the angel we are talking about. For now, I keep saying it, BRICS very much looks like an economic alliance, but there's a lot of political undertone.
Definitely.
And don't forget that China is much more looking appealing in the global system. China recently mediated the Saudi Arabia, Iran's diplomatic rift. Now, Saudi Arabia and Iran have mended relations. These are two strong rivalries, not just in the Middle East, in the Gulf. But you can see China trying to be appealing. Russia will still start to be appealing too. These were countries that before now you can't even look at them as just friends. You have to be very much careful.
So what happens now? Saudi is now with BRICS. What about the relationship between Saudi and US? Remember, they sell weapons to them. They had these allies.
Even India.
What is now going to happen? Has the door being shut permanently at US, or do you think they can still go back, or they are totally for BRICS now?
Like I said before, relations will be maintained. Being a member of BRICS doesn't mean that you're a direct enemy to the Western world.
But it will definitely come to that. So
it's going to, because BRICS will not just be an economic bloc. BRICS is most likely going to look like a NATO. So we are going to have NATO versus BRICS. Of course, BRICS is going to be expanded. It's no longer because
talking about NATO, there are more countries joining NATO. Finland just joined NATO a couple of weeks back.
There's a trigger to Finland's journey because of the Russian aggression and Russian expansionist Putin's movement and all of that. That's why even the Nordic countries are pushing. So it's understandable, but BRICS going further than just being an economic bloc is going to cause a serious disruption in the global system.
Okay, a whole lot we need to discuss about this BRICS. We'll dedicate 1 hour to that. Let's move away from that. Let's go to